And Madam Speaker, if only alarmism could fix our woes, because if it could, we would all be in paradise by now. It would be a socialist and bureaucratic paradise, but for some people that is what they are looking for. And I would say in Drysdale, we have felt the reality of what that so-called paradise looks like. And it looks like poverty, Madam Speaker, because that is the harsh reality of the bureaucratic process that has existed in the Northern Territory for so long, and it has now delivered poverty throughout my electorate. And that is what we aim to change. We spoke of the courage of the Environment Minister, and I'd like to speak to that as well. Ask the question of what is courage. The Environmental Minister has come out throughout this government and made extremely tough decisions, and he has made them for the betterment of the people of the Northern Territory. They may not be in agreement with certain groups. That is not what the Environment Minister is here for, Madam Speaker. He is here to represent the people of the Northern Territory that placed our government, which placed him in that position. And I thank the Minister for every step he has taken in his reform agenda in putting Territorians first, and the majority view, like the people in my electorate, who want the economy to get moving, and they want jobs, and they want certainty, and that is exactly what this minister is delivering on. Yeah. Madam Speaker, if 10 people are in a room and one is screaming, it does not make them right. And that is the core of what we are here doing today, Madam Speaker. We are putting the power back into the people of Drysdale so that we can get the economy moving, because they want jobs, they want to earn money, and I want to make that a reality for them. I want my people's wealth to grow. And we should not be ashamed of that. They should not be ashamed of that. And I will push that reform agenda the whole way, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the people of Drysdale want cheaper energy bills, they want development, they want to make sure their kids will have a job here in the Northern Territory and that they don't have to go interstate. And this, at the heart, is what we're trying to achieve. The reality is the third-party merits review has certainly been abused. It has been weaponised and has drifted far from its original intent. So yes, it was originally created as an accountability measure, but once certain groups have identified that it can be used for a tool to push their ideological agenda, this government will step in and make changes, Madam Speaker. And the people that have hijacked this, the activists that have hijacked this process, they do not bear the costs. They do not bear the costs of the loss of jobs, the loss of income, to the tradesmen who no longer will have a site to work on, to the small businesses like the subcontractors, to the builders. This is the flow-on effect of this process being hijacked. And we will stop it. That is what our government will sit here and do today, because that is what the people want. That is what people in my electorate want. Madam Speaker, Fuller said the law must be coherent, consistent, and provide certainty. And it's that final word there, certainty. The law must provide certainty. Again, that is what we have promised to the people of the Northern Territory. We promised action, certainty, and security this year. And this speaks to the heart of the certainty aspect of that. So you know that once you have approval, you can continue with your development. It means not only the investors, Madam Speaker, but everyone that is part of that development now has certainty. So to the hundreds of businesses that quote in any given tender process, the whole supply chain for materials, all the separate trades, the manufacturing, there is a huge amount of work, unpaid work, I might add, during the tender process that businesses go through to try and get this job. And then for an activist to come along and weaponize a process like the merits review, then throws that whole chain, that whole logistics train, all those businesses are now left with mass uncertainty. They don't know if the job will come, they don't know when they'll get paid, and this is what we will stop, Madam Speaker. When people follow the rules, comply with planning frameworks, and still face unpredictable delays, the system has become unjust. And that unjustness flows on to a real human cost. And that human cost has not been spoken of by those opposite, but I'll speak to it now. The human cost behind every project delay is a family. There's a family at home waiting. There is a tradesman waiting. There is a community left waiting. And there is a territory economy waiting, Madam Speaker. And all at the same time, our country faces a severe housing crisis and a severe cost of living crisis. Why would those in power in this House who are meant to represent the people want to do any legislative change or block legislative change that can help fix housing and cost of living? And that is why I'll be so supportive of this bill, Madam Speaker, because I will do anything within my power to alleviate those pressures on the people of the Northern Territory. Madam Speaker, Burke also stated, society is a contract between generations. I would say, what are we leaving behind for the next generation? And it seems that those opposite just look through that through one prism, Madam Speaker. But I'm genuinely and I sincerely want to give my children and the children in my electorate real futures here in the Northern Territory. I want them to stay here, study here, and I want them to see that they can have a long, enjoyable, and wealth-creating career here in the Northern Territory. And again, I will do and support any legislation that I think can make that a reality. I want to improve youth employment. I want to improve housing. I want to improve business confidence. And at the moment, all of those things are collateral from legal activism that is masquerading as justice, Madam Speaker. The economic consequences, investors simply avoid uncertainty. And that's, why wouldn't you? At a time when we critically need to gain investment and business confidence, we must make the Northern Territory look as promising as it possibly can be. Projects are getting shelved, builders go quiet, and apprentices miss out. And as I've already said, when those things happen, the entire supply chain get affected. We are such an interconnected society and economy. One hold-up through merits review, pushed through on an ideological agenda, has real implications for so many in the community and the community of the people that I represent, Madam Speaker. And we must not let the loudest minority override the needs of the majority. And I say the needs, Madam Speaker, because when you can't afford your weekly shop, this stuff is no longer a want, it's not a nice to have. There are many Territorians who this week will struggle to afford groceries. They will struggle to afford rent. And though we may disagree when it comes to matters like this, Our government is trying everything in its power to alleviate those costs. And that is why I support this bill, because if it makes an impact on the people in my electorate's ability to pay for their Coles shop and pay for their rent or buy their own home, which is what I'd love to get everyone into, then I will pass and support it. There's also a principle at stake, and that principle is certainty. We've seen that principle, I believe, has been eroded over time with people, prior governments, pushing away responsibility. Why not own the decisions you make? And as a government, we are proud to say that, yes, once we make a decision, it will rest on our shoulders. It will rest on the minister's shoulders. But that is what we want, Madam Speaker. And that way, once you get that tick of approval from the NT government, you know you have a decision and you can go forward with that decision. The law must not create anxiety. We must not have laws that create anxiety for individuals, for business, and for investors. Our laws should only invoke confidence and a matter of other things, but what they should avoid at all costs is creating anxiety, be it in the marketplace or in any other aspect of our lives. So if you follow the rules, you get approval, and you should be able to build. And I believe that is fair, I believe that is lawful, and I believe that will create confidence in our system, Madam Speaker. The fact is, Territorians do not want wasteful layers of bureaucracy. And they have put us in this chamber to reduce that bureaucracy because they see it everywhere. And so it is time that this government, this parliament, starts taking decisions and accountability for themselves, which is exactly what the Finocchiaro government has said they will do, and we will do, Madam Speaker. We will strip the bureaucracy from the Northern Territory, and we will do it unashamedly because we are doing it for the people. And that, I think, is both a noble and good thing. We've heard a lot of alarmism today on the erosion of safeguards. The fact is, Madam Speaker, consultation still remains. That process is still open. Environmental and planning regulations still remain. And genuine community voices will still be heard, but only during the right stage of the process. And I actually commend the fact that this wasn't sent to the scrutiny committee, because in the heart of what we are changing is stripping back bureaucracy. There are bills that need to go to that committee, of which I am part of. And we saw it with the Territory Coordinator Bill. That was a good bill to come to the committee. It was a good bill to look into issues that the community has and provide recommendations. And this bill, it doesn't need it. I openly, as part of that committee, I do not believe this bill needs to come through, because at its heart, we are trying to reduce those layers of bureaucracy. And so I just want to see it done so we can get to the business of getting things done here in the NT. I'm ever growing concerned, Madam Speaker, at the hyperpolarising of the environment. And I would ask those opposite just to keep that in mind when we enter these debates. You don't need to, and especially to young people, the environment can be bipartisan. You don't have to prescribe to extreme ideology to care about the environment. I've long been I've long supported conservation. I love my biology, Madam Speaker, but I do not prescribe to the fact that I need to give up any form of conservation care by standing firm on things like economic development. They can go hand in hand, and our government will ensure there is a balance. If we continue to polarize the environment, we will lose huge swaths of people who will see it as an extreme fringe issue, which it is not. It is not, Madam Speaker, and I won't prescribe to that either. So, to anyone listening, you can be for economic development. You can also care about the environment. And that is what our CLP government will aim to do and get that balance right, Madam Speaker. Previous government, in my opinion, Madam Speaker, did any measure they could to avoid accountability. The simple fact was the previous ministers, if they could disseminate a decision, they would. And we created an environment where we have death by bureaucracy, and that is not good for anyone, and it is not good especially for the people of the Northern Territory. And that is what we are not afraid of. We are not afraid of reducing that bureaucracy to what is essential, and we will bear the brunt of those decisions. And it's time to really call what it is when third merits reviews are weaponised. It's not about transparency, Madam Speaker. It's purely about power. A small class of activists who have no care for the flow-on effects of the decisions they make are disrupting the system with no accountability. We as members of this chamber are held to extremely high standards in the community, as we should be. But for a small group who are empowered, can remain faceless and destroy projects that bring economic benefit, bring jobs, bring money, and essentially make my people poorer, I will not stand for. Madam Speaker, this reform is about courage. At its core, we are taking the courage to make the hard decisions to change. The Minister, Joshua Burgoyne, has shown immense courage since the day he stepped into this portfolio, and I thank him immensely for his leadership on making real change in environmental legislation for the Northern Territory and the people of Drysdale. Thank you, Minister. So we can get jobs going and we can get our kids apprenticeships and we can have a real future here in the Northern Territory. Essentially, Madam Speaker, to the people of the NT, we have your back. We have the back of every mum and dad who's out there working today trying to make a living. We have the back of every child who is looking to have a future in any industry they wish. If you want to go to TAFE, Madam Speaker, and be a tradesman, we want you to stay here in the Northern Territory. I want you to use that skill set to build your wealth. I want you to have a future that you couldn't have dreamed of when you were young. And I want you to pass on to your children a future that you didn't have. That is at the core of what we stand for, and we will do everything in our power to ensure the people of the Northern Territory have a real future and real wealth-building capacity, Madam Speaker. It's about saying to the people who will stall progress, no more. No more to the environmental activists who will stall this territory. You have come up against a government who will no longer accept it, Madam Speaker. We are here for the people of the Northern Territory, and we will listen to the majority, and we will make a government for the people, Madam Speaker. I commend this bill, and I thank the Minister once again. Thank you, Madam Speaker.